Thanks for joining in today on our Spouse Spotlight number 2 from Pride and Grit. Today we're going to talk with Meg Flanagan. Meg is both an educator and an advocate, and we're going to talk a little bit about the work she does to help families and children, both as they transition and just as they work to get the most out of their educational experience. So tune in and let us know what you think. Okay, so thank you for joining me again for another Pride and Grit Spotlight. Today we have Meg Flanagan on, and I was really excited to talk to Meg because when I sort of first started this Pride and Grit journey and I started learning about all the other people that were in this space trying to help, Meg was one of the sites that I came across. And what I loved about what she was doing is she took her background as an educator and was able to really build this business and build this career, if you will, out of her passion for kids and her passion for education. And so I found that to just be really, just really inspiring to see how that all worked for her. So I'm excited to have her tell you about it and tell you a little bit about her path. So Meg, thank you so much for being here with us. We appreciate it. If you want to start off by just, absolutely. If you want to start off with just telling us a little bit of kind of the highlight reel, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey as both a military spouse and an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. So I'm Meg. I run Mill Kids. I used to run Mill Kids Ed, but now it's Meg Flanagan Education Solutions. And I am an educator. My background is in special education and elementary education. I hold a master's in special ed and a bachelor's in elementary ed. I'm dual certified in Massachusetts and Virginia, and I think still by DODEA. And when I started my whole military spouse journey, gosh, a decade ago now, we were stationed in California first, right when all of the teachers were getting pink slips back in 2009, 2010, and education was taking a hard hit in California. So there were no jobs in the schools unless you wanted to wait forever. And so I took a look around, and a lot of my neighbors had school-age kids, and they were always saying, man, my kid is missing fractions, my kid is missing nouns, they're not quite sure about division, they're not quite sure about this other thing. And so I thought, I'm a teacher, I can open a tutoring business. And so I did just that. I started Mill Kids Ed as a tutoring business specifically for military children, because as you know, if you have kids in school, schools in America are designed to, you stay in one system, ideally at least the state, from pre-K to senior year. Everything builds on top of each other inside of that one state system. It's not designed for kids to move smoothly about the country.
So true.
It's kind of insane when you look at other countries, and everyone is doing kind of the same thing at about the same time. But in the US, every state has the ability to tweak and change and set their own standards to a certain extent. And that kind of can mess up military kids. And so what I found is that, kids that move mid-school year or towards the end of the school year, or maybe at the beginning of the school year, they often miss the same key components every year. So they're missing fractions every third year because they move in the month when fractions is covered, because it's cyclical. So, you tend to kind of cover things in about the same order, especially in elementary school. And so you're kind of covering fractions and, say like November, December. And if you're moving mid-school year, you're continuing to miss.
Right. No, that's such an interesting point.
Mm-hmm. And so I opened my business, and as I started to get going, I noticed that a lot of families had questions about special education. I was writing reviews and data analysis and recommendation letters and insight letters and, anecdotal letters to help the schools better understand my students. And in some cases, walking parents through the special education IEP process, walking them through the homeschooling process, walking them through the gifted education process, all areas that I have background in. And so I thought, that's a really interesting thing. But then we moved, and I ended up getting a full-time job. And so I kind of put my little business in the back burner to have babies and teach full-time and just try something different, get back in the classroom, which is where I really love to be. And so we moved again to Japan, and I had my second child, and I was home with him, and I thought, let me let me just put some feelers out there and let me see if there's a need for this. And there is,
Mm-hmm.
despite all of the free resources that are available to military families, like the school liaison officer, EFMP, MIC3, MCEC, you know, there's still those gaps of parents that need a very specific kind of a resource, a very specific kind of assistance. And the military side maybe doesn't quite cover as much of the special education side as they need, and the special education side doesn't quite cover as much of the military aspect as they need, which is perfect because that's exactly where I live, in
Yeah,
that
right.
little base, for
Yeah.
families that are highly mobile that need to continually re-educate schools on what their kid needs.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. You hear that all the time that, if, especially if you're a parent and you feel like you've kind of got that figured out and you're in a good environment and the child is well supported. And then it's just that, oh my gosh, we got to do it all over again. And we got to start all over again at the next place. And we may not, necessarily have the conversations that we wish we could have because we just got here, and so it's great to have an advocate, which is kind of how I see you. I mean, essentially, it's just an advocate who has the background to be able to speak the language and be able to have the conversation, maybe on a level that, I may know my kid better than anyone, but I may not necessarily know how the things I'm saying translate into what might be needed. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's
think it's so interesting.
and it's not just military parents either. Every parent. I find it challenging myself to advocate for my kids at their school, simply because it's my child. It's
Sure.
my child, and so I am fully invested in this game. Like this is my Super Bowl. This is my baby. Um, so even having an education background, it sometimes is daunting to go in and sit down with her teacher and say, "Hey, I have a concern about X, or is there something else I need to be doing?" So it helps to have that neutral third party, especially when it's a high stakes situation like gifted ed, special ed, 504 plans, a military child that maybe needs some extra help. There's some pretty big, there's some pretty big balls in the field here.
Hmm.
And it helps to have someone who can kind of take a step back and see the entire situation and kind of navigate, is which move is going to be the most advantageous, both for the school, for the child, for mom and dad, what's going to feel good for everybody, what can we all
Right.
get on board with? And that's hard to see if
Hmm.
you're the school and you're used to doing it ABC way. And it's hard to see when you're mom and dad and you're not seeing your kid in the school every day. You're just
Right.
seeing what's happening at home.
Of course.
Um, Really hard.
Yeah. No, I want to come back to a little bit later. I want to come back to kind of some specifics about, some of the different ways that you've helped families, because I think it's always great to have, some situational perspectives on, I know a lot of the stuff you've posted around helping with IEP conversations and so forth. So I definitely want to come back to that. Let's talk for a minute about the transition for you. So you went from tutoring into sort of being kind of a business owner, right?
Mhm.
And I assume that's not something you had done before, you kind of went down the tutoring road.
Not really. I dabbled in the Sensi, and I ran the tutoring as a business. And but it was all very casual. It was 2010. So it was not real. Like it was just kind of. I look
Sure.
back on, like, the statuses from 2010, and I'm like, oh man, like it's not what it is today. So it's
Sure.
not the marketing monolith that is today.
Right.
Um, And so running a business in 2018 is very different from even what it was when I started 3 years ago with the full-time like blogging and advocacy
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
what are some of the biggest challenges that you have kind of come up on as you've been trying to sort of navigate this, being an entrepreneur and doing your marketing online and being remote, if you will, remote entrepreneur from your audience in large part. What does that look like, and what have been some of those challenges for you?
I definitely think that being remote and being located in Japan is is the biggest challenge right
Mhm.
now. So military families in Japan, as you know, in Germany, um, the education scene is definitely dominated by DODEA and the military included resources, and they cannot speak about me. So even though they all know I'm here, they all
Right.
kind of like on the sly reached out and been like, hey, you offer a really cool thing. Like, I wish I could talk about you. And I'm like, cool, too. Thanks for
That's
that.
awesome.
It's honestly just trying to get the word out, trying to create the little niche for myself, and just trying to help people understand what I do, because it is unusual. You
Sure.
don't you don't really hear about advocates in the way that I'm being an advocate. You hear about, the political advocates that are, like Megan Harless, who's going to
Right.
Capitol
Right.
advocate for press moves, and Elizabeth Dole, who advocates for wounded warrior families. Those are the kind of advocates we hear about. We don't necessarily hear too much about the individual people that are sitting down with one family at a time and trying to change their world.
Yeah, no, for sure. So like to that, if someone, was listening and has a passion of their own, like maybe it's not education, but something else that they're interested in, and they want to kind of see how they could build that into a business that is mobile, which I think is a really nice thing about what you're doing, is that you're in Japan now, but you won't be there forever, right? And so someday you'll be able to take that into a whole new audience, and be able to help a whole new set of parents and a whole new set of
Mm-hmm.
kids. But what would be kind of the advice you would give someone who's kind of considering starting down the road you've walked, even if it's with a different field?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I have worked with Kayla Roof and Kristen Smith for the last, gosh, like 3 to 5 years. And they have,
Fantastic.
and Moni Jefferson, um, you know, find your people, find the people that are giving you ways to organize yourself in a way that makes sense for you, that are helping you find clarity and purpose. One of Kayla, all three of them advocate for writing down a giant list of all the things that you enjoy doing, that you feel passionate about. So knitting, crocheting, running. I'm a huge runner. Like, I run almost every day pretty much. And so I have a WordPress site reserved for a blog about being a mother runner. I haven't touched it. It's been sitting there for it's just there. It's just hanging out. So eventually, if I do decide to start it, the name is already reserved in WordPress. It's not its own domain. If you have an idea that's unique, that's different, go out and buy a domain name. So I got really lucky and megflanagan.com was available. So I purchased that, and I still own millkidsed.com because I'm not quite ready to release that name back into the wild and have somebody else snap it up.
Yeah.
So, it's, find out what you're passionate about, buy the domain name, set up your social media, and then just join some groups. Join some military spouse entrepreneur groups. Milspouse Creative is great. Blog Your Genius is great. Kayla Roof has a Work From Anywhere Business Academy community. There's a paid section, and then there's just a free group that you can join. There's tons of people out there in the virtual business world that you can just hop in and just sit back and watch the questions, watch the conversations, see what other people are doing. I know that there is a huge push right now for mindset coaches, so helping people to find the right mindset. There's a huge push for, or a huge influx of parenting coaches, and people that are lifestyle gurus. So there's a lot of people out there in those spaces right now that are new, that are established, that are trying to be established.
Yeah, no, they're definitely, there's no shortage of I think, people willing to help, and samples and examples of kind of, what people are up to, and what works. And ultimately, I think, the passion is the most important piece, like you said, like figuring out what is the thing that you're going to want to get up and do every day and want to put yourself towards, and stay committed to. I think that's, that's definitely the first hurdle.
I think also something where you have a little bit of weight and a little bit of gravitas in the field. So, I mean, I have multiple degrees in education, so that's kind of my street cred.
So talk a little bit about what some of those solutions are that you're providing, just so folks have a
Absolutely.
sense of that. Well, I want to later do a bigger profile on you as a resource in general, but just give us kind of the highlights of what are some of the things that folks could expect if they wanted to go that route.
Absolutely. So my primary focus is in helping parents and schools better communicate. So the biggest way I do that is as a parent coach and advocate. I'm not claiming I'm going to change how you parent your child or like the behavior aspect. I will help you find education solutions. So I will help you plan out meetings with the school, with you to IEP meetings, depending on where you're located. I can attend in person or virtually.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, it's really, schools are kind of thrown off by that, but
I bet.
I really like it because they can kind of have like that covert text conversation with me at the same time that they're talking to the school. And so for some families, I completely take over their communication, and they let the school know that every single email about their child is going to be routed through me.
Mm.
I literally respond for the parent. I act kind of as their person in charge of
Mm-hmm.
their, like a
Sure.
PR brander.
No, I
Uh,
got
yeah. And then the other thing I do is I help parents. These are personal services. So um, my other personal service is helping families find a good school after a move. So
you.
when you're moving, you're trying to organize the move and organize daycare and childcare and find a school. And it's really overwhelming. Finding a school it can take a full-time job, the full-time work week, 40
Sure.
plus hours to find a good school once you've triangulated the data and, figured out a commute and your rental rate and which schools are good and then deciphered all the data. And that's really overwhelming, especially when you don't quite know the jargon maybe, or you're not quite sure what the scores mean. So that's where I come in. I help parents decode that and narrow it down and give an inside look at the school, and then help build the connections to the school by creating emails for them that they can literally like copy paste and send from them to the school. There's
Huh.
just like intro letters. Here's my kid. This is what I need to know. So those are my two main personal service areas. And then I also offer print resources. So my cornerstone is Talk to the Teacher. It's like a recipe book, but for meetings and email templates. So parents
Oh,
can literally go in and are like, oh, I have a meeting about, my child's playground behavior today. And they go to the behavior script and they look at it and say, okay, this is what I need to talk about. I need to say
right.
these things. I'm just going to put and they can bring it with them on their iPad and literally read it. And just wherever it says like child's name, you just say John Smith. You just put his name there. And then there's like lists of like things you can say. Like, I understand that John was poking Susie in the eye on the playground, So it gives you those little like turns of phrase that educators respond to so that you can do better as a parent and get a better result.
Well, and the result is, the goal of all of it, right, is to be able to communicate, with the school and with the teachers in a way that gets everyone the best result for the child. And so
Yes.
sometimes I think if folks are struggling with how best to get there, or feel like they're just not communicating in a way that's resonating and is, giving them the conversation they want, that it's great to just kind of look outside and go, okay, what am I missing? Maybe I'm just missing something. And that sounds like that's where you come in.
Yes, exactly. It kind of takes the mama bear out of the situation, because we all have that gut
Of
instinct as
course.
parents to, go fully to bat for your child in school and in life. And you just kind of want to make things easier and smoother and like less painful. And so when there's a wrong, real or perceived, you can kind of come in with gangbusters. Earlier in my career, I was out for some reason. I don't remember why, but I was out for like a week, and report cards had come out, and a mom had emailed the school because her child got an A instead of an A plus on the report card.
It's an approach.
And I had to have a video conference with my assistant principal and just be like, she got a 94. I don't understand why mom is mad. Like,
Right.
it's all in how you phrase it. And
Yeah,
if mom had
no,
come at it a different way, we would have had a more
different
positive
conversation.
conversation about that and talked about ways to, why this was a great result for her child and how it was challenging and why the challenges maybe lowered the grade by 3 points. So she got the A instead of the A plus, but why that was a more valuable learning experience. And that would have been
Right.
a better conversation to have, as opposed to going directly to the the admin team and saying, this
Right.
is wrong.
Right. Right.
Like,
Right.
all of these things. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of where the book came from, where the advocacy came from, because I want to prevent parents and teachers from having that adversarial relationship. It's not positive for anyone, and it
Sure.
really ultimately hits your child.
Right. No, it's very true. But to your point, like the mama bear piece is hard, and
It is.
having a different perspective, I think, but I guess you've also got to be open to that different perspective
Mhm.
as well. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So if we
Yeah.
shift, like that, no, and that's great. I appreciate you kind of walking us through what you have, because I think it's a great toolbox for anyone who is feeling like they're just not quite getting where they need to with for their child's education. As
Mhm.
a military spouse, talking about that for a minute, because you said a dozen plus years, is that right?
Yeah, I think we got married in 2008, so
Oh,
this will
okay.
be year 11 in
Right.
December. And we started in 10.
It goes quick,
Been,
right?
been a journey.
I know, right? So if you just kind of putting the business piece aside as just a
Mhm.
military spouse, what, if you could kind of go back to the beginning, what's something you wish you'd kind of realized from the very outset in terms of being a military spouse? Something you go back and tell your earlier self.
I think kind of take a deep breath. You need to take care of yourself first? Put on your own oxygen mask. You cannot care for
Right.
anyone else if you are struggling. So don't feel bad if, wherever you are in life, if you're a working professional, if you're a stay-at-home mom, don't feel bad, or dad, don't feel bad about taking that time for yourself to get a massage, get a pedicure, go out for coffee, enjoy a girls' night out, boys' night out, whatever. Take some time for yourself, and don't wrap your whole existence into military life, which sounds counterintuitive because they control every aspect of my life for the
Right.
most part. But I identify first as me, and then as a mother, a runner, a teacher, and then last a military spouse.
Sure. Sure.
Um, just because I feel like if I were a military spouse first, then it'd make a harder transition when this glorious adventure is over.
Yeah, no, and I think no, that's true, and I think many a person who has kind of entered that retirement phase will say that even with the best of intentions, sometimes that's a kind of a weird phase to figure out who you are without this as part of your everyday. So
Mhm.
building your own sort of path, I think, is valuable.
We're on the fast down slope. My husband has less than a decade left in the Marine
Right.
Corps. So we are more rapidly than not approaching that 20-year mark. And hopefully we get there. But we're very, seriously looking at life after the military
Sure.
and what
Sure.
it will look like. And so having this business that,
Yeah.
it's still, even though I've been doing it for a while, I've grown it in bits and pieces. It doesn't have to come up all at once. It doesn't have to be out of the box immediately. But, I've chipped away at it year after year, and, built a reputation, built a brand, built a business, built something that I enjoy doing, that
Hmm.
isn't, it's not something that stresses me out too much. And if it is stressing me out, then I just stop doing that piece of it. And no
Sure.
one's the wiser. It's my business.
Right.
Don't do it.
Right.
I mean,
No, it's
yeah,
true.
if
And
you
it,
want to
and
do
it'll
something,
give
do it.
you, it gives you as a family something that,
Mhm.
you'll be able to lean on, when you get towards the end,
Mhm.
and you'll be
Yeah,
able to be, um, providing for the family as well in that way. So that's,
let's hope so.
I know, right? Great. I have no doubt. Well, tell everyone kind of, how they can find you if they have questions for you. Give us the spiel on where to find Meg.
Well, you can find me at megflanagan.com. You can purchase any of my principal resources, including Talk to the Teacher and several other education guides, quick and dirty guides, to help parents at megflanagan.com/shop. You
Okay.
can find me on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, at Meg Flanagan Education, and on Twitter at Meg Flanagan Ed. If you have any personal questions that you would like answered, or you'd like more information about any services or resources I provide, you can email me at milkidsed@gmail.com. That's milkidsed@gmail.com.
You have got that down. Good. Awesome. Well, I know it's late for you, so I will let you go, but thank you for being with us and we appreciate your time.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks again for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the conversation today with Meg. If you have someone in your life, military spouse, that you think would be great for a Pride and Grit profile, or if that's you, please feel free to go to prideandgrit.com to the Spotlight section where you can submit yourself or someone else for a future spotlight. Subscribe to the video as well so that you'll be notified the next time we upload a new profile. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.